welcome back. It feels like we haven't seen each other for a long time. I'd like to begin this evening with our open study session. Nikki?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So just for a bit of context, as some of you may know, about roughly every 4 years we conduct a community survey. The purpose is just to get resident feedback and opinions on our existing programs and services, and then we use that data to look into what we can expand upon, future needs we need to meet, all of that. So for tonight, we have Mr. Robert Heacock with ETC Institute. They conducted the survey for us last fall, and he'll just be giving you kind of an overview of some of the most notable outcomes from the survey. So I'll let him take it away.
Thank you. Welcome, Robert.
Awesome. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Nikki. Appreciate that. Mayor, members of the council, it's a pleasure to be here. As Nikki said, I'm Robert Haycock, representing ETC Institute based in Olathe. So we're fortunate. We do most of the survey work for communities in this area and, in fact, around the country. Last time I think we did one was 2020 for you, and I presented it at that time. I have to say I really like the updates to this area. It looks really nice. This gives you a feel for it if you're not familiar with ETC Institute. Again, we're based in Olathe, Kansas, but we've served cities, counties, different agencies all over the country, as you can see. And actually, I think we finally did pick up one in Delaware, so we could change that to 50 states. Agenda really quick, we're going to go over kind of the purpose and methodology behind the survey itself, the bottom line up front, conclusions, major findings, summary, and then hopefully open it for questions you might have. Purposes vary from community to community, but this is a list of some of the major ones of why people would want to engage a company like ETC to do a survey. To have an objective citizens satisfaction survey, to have objective feedback as opposed to just whoever shows up and has something to say. This reaches and engages your community in a different way. We're able, because of the amount of work we've done with different communities, we're able to compare and benchmark your performance with other cities in both Missouri, Kansas region and across the country. We're able to look at major trends from your previous survey, and we're able to determine priorities moving forward and give you some feedback on that. So the methodology, I realize some of these are a little bit hard to see. There's a lot of information on there, but it was essentially a 7-page survey. This is the 4th time that we've actually administered a survey for Gladstone, with the first one being in 2007. We did it by mail and online, more so every day. It seems like people are gravitating more towards online and being more comfortable. But still, to make sure we're gathering as much feedback as possible, we try to make sure we send it by mail as well. So a random sample, the goal was 400, and we did reach that. We have a confidence level, I believe it's plus or margin of error plus or minus 4.9% at a 95% confidence level. So the bottom line up front here, 3 major categories of feedback. One is the residents really do have a very positive perception of your community. 92% rated you as excellent or good place to live, 88% rated the city as an excellent or good place to raise children, and only 4% rated it below average or poor. The overall satisfaction with services, and I think this is really important, especially we're going to get into some trends. Not all of the most recent results are moving necessarily upwards. Some of them have dropped back down, but I think what I would call your attention to is, even though you might have had some ups and downs in some specific areas, you're still rating well above the U.S. average in 35 of 39 categories, and with our Missouri-Kansas average in 28 of the 39 areas. So that's really impressive, and it shows that you're focused on those results and they're stable over time. The city rated Gladstone 33% above the U.S. average and 8% above the Missouri-Kansas average and overall quality of services. This gives you kind of a feel for, we're often asked, well, where did the people respond to? This is the distribution of that. We don't provide specific responses, so it's really important that one of our tenets is to have confidentiality. We never divulge that. At most, we would provide a client like Gladstone the block area. So in other words, we're not going to say this survey came from 412 Main Street, but we might say it came from the 400 block of Main Street. So major findings, again, residents have a very positive perception of the city. As we move through here, I do want to kind of explain a little bit the color scheme here. So it's a 5-point scale, but what we call the dissatisfied or very dissatisfied are combined in the red. we try to maximize the red in terms of impact. You can see in the dark blue and the light blue are very satisfied and very satisfied. One thing I will point out, it's very frequent when I work with clients that they'll focus on the red areas. Oh my gosh, how can we get to that 12% that said that we're not managing redevelopment very well? But look, you have 36%, over a third of your community that took the time to fill the survey out, only to say I'm neutral. What does that mean? To us, it means it's an opportunity for communities to look at that, have a discussion internally, and maybe figure out how to educate the community on some of the things that's going on. It may seem like everyone should be aware, but a lot of times they aren't. And so that's what leads some folks to saying I'm neutral on that type of an issue. Overall ratings of the city, you can see, I'm not going to read all of these, but you can see again, it's a place to live, a place to raise children, all of those, very positive. We do show some people at the bottom in terms of a place to open a business. Not unusual, but again, you see that large group of area, 36% doesn't really have a handle on whether it's good or bad in terms of the city being a place to open a business. Overall satisfaction with city services by major category, we go through things like quality of fire service, ambulance service, quality of parks and recreation programs, police services, all of those ranked in the top 4. And you can see a healthy majority of folks that responded said they were very satisfied or satisfied with those particular services. So that's very positive. You do see down below maintenance of streets, particularly city streets, buildings, and facilities, and then enforcement of codes and ordinances. Those are higher level concerns, and you'll see that they do register in terms of priorities a little bit later in the presentation. Major finding number 2, we're going to go over the satisfaction with many city services in terms of how you compare to other communities. So again, we're looking at a national average, one that we do every 18 months. I'm often asked, well, how often is the data current? We do that every 18 months. We update the national data, and the last time we did that was February of 24. So it was probably 8 months old or so by the time we did your survey, but very much still valid. We're going to go through those different categories again. We've made it easy a little bit by inserting arrows. So when you see a blue arrow, what does that mean? That means that your rankings were significantly higher than those other communities. Typically, that's by that 5%, plus or minus 5%. So in quality of parks and recreation, quality of customer service from city employees, and flow of traffic and congestion management, when you compare yourselves to, you're in the blue or purple, compare yourselves to the Missouri-Kansas average in the yellow and the U.S. average in the orange. So you can see in all those categories, you're either pretty much tied with the region or even better than the region, performing higher satisfaction than the region, and certainly well above the national averages. Issues that influence perception of the city, again, that you're looking at these comparisons, benchmarks. Quality of services provided, you're at about 8% higher than the region. Appearance of the city, you're 6% higher satisfaction level than the rest of the region. And what value you receive for your tax dollars and fees. That's often one that kind of trips people up. They may score well on overall satisfaction or in terms of customer service or particular issues like that. But I think it's really positive to note how significantly above the national average you are on that particular metric. We'll look at, again, some other places of those perceptions. Place to live, a place to raise children, all of those rated significantly higher than the region. If you just take a look at a place to retire, 75% as opposed to, I think that's 59% for the Missouri and Kansas region, which is significant. We're looking at different different public safety categories. So items like how quickly firefighters respond, how quickly ambulance personnel respond, and police, and the city's efforts to prevent crime. And you can see all of those very positive. The one area on here where you are behind the region is in the adequacy of city street lighting. And I would say that a number of our clients will look at and talk to, we have questions like safety, how safety feel in your neighborhood. And they'll overlay that with an understanding where the responses come from in terms of adequacy of street lighting. They have a profile. Okay, so now you can go to whoever your, it's KCP&L or whoever the provider is, or if you, I don't believe you have your own electric department. So if you can provide them with information and say, look, this is directly impacting safety of our community. This is where they feel unsafe. We want to talk about how we can have you roll out more streetlights, or how we can get grant funds or whatever to address that particular issue. Overall satisfaction with maintenance services. Again, snow removal on major city streets. Now, that doesn't measure what happened in our snowmageddon that we just encountered here, obviously, because the survey was taken earlier, but you can see overall you're doing quite well, compared 13% higher than the regional average, and I can't even read the number on the U.S. average, but it's way higher than that. Again, you get down to the bottom, there are a couple of categories: the maintenance of city streets and the maintenance of sidewalks, where you are lower than the regional average, and actually both the national average as well. Major trends, make it easier, not have just more cramped slides. We decided just to summarize these. So quality of customer service went up 5%. This is all in the last 4 years. So as a place to retire, as a place to open a business, even though, remember back when I was talking about it, as a place to open a business ranked relatively low, still going in the right direction, at least a 5% increase in that relationship between police officers and residents, and the last one was as a place to buy their next home. Now we'll get into some other areas, and you can say, oh my gosh, all of these are such big negative decreases in 4 years. How well the city is managing development, city's adult athletic program, maintenance of city streets, all of those. But I would tell you, some of the things, if you look at how well the city is managing development, yes, it went down 12% in the last 4 years. But if you went back to the slides we're talking about, the comparisons, you're still ahead of the regional and national averages in that category. It's just kind of brought back. And maybe 4 years ago you were celebrating some redevelopment projects, or there were some other things, and a recency bias at that point in time that maybe influenced people's perceptions, and maybe not as much this time. That does happen sometimes, especially if you have some major projects that are getting the headlines and discussion around a community. But yes, these drop. Yes, it's worthwhile for you to have discussion with your staff and kind of make sure we're addressing these appropriately. But it's not necessarily meaning that you're all of a sudden doing way worse than everybody else in that category. A lot of our clients since 2000, since COVID, really, the tenor has been a little bit more critical. It's it's harder to get responses from citizens, and it's harder. They're not just blanket being positive about everything in the community. So a little bit tougher grading scale, I would say, is in general what we see right now. So now we're going to go into major findings and investment. And before I get into this, I want to make sure that you understand our approach, because this is something unique to ETC. And we're talking about a satisfaction importance index, or an SI index. What does that mean? Well, you might ask me and say, well, how satisfied are you with the dog park? I might say, oh man, I took Buster there the other day. He got beat up by these big dogs. It was awful. I hated it. It was a really bad experience. I'm very dissatisfied with the city of Gladstone's dog park. But if you also then ask me, well, how important is it to you? I might say, I don't care. I don't think you need to spend more money on the dog park. I was just unhappy with it, but I would not prioritize it for future spending. So it's not like you have to go build a second dog park just because I complained. I'd rather you spend money on other areas. So to keep that in mind as we go through these next slides, because that's really what we've done is we create, through an algorithm, we create a correlation number that you'll see here that allows us to rank those. So for example, here we have overall categories of city services. So you have things like the maintenance of streets, buildings, facilities, the enforcement of city codes that we talked about earlier, all of those major items. And you can see there's 10 different items listed, or 11 of them, I guess it's 10. And so maintenance of city streets, that ranked 5th in terms of satisfaction, I believe, but first in terms of importance. So that's what we're looking at, and it highlights these 4 areas as really, if the citizens are telling you you have more money to invest, or in terms of your focus, we want you to focus on these 4 major areas. For public safety, you can see, again, adequacy of street lighting shows up in public safety, city's efforts to prevent crime, and environment of traffic laws. Those are the top 3 priorities when it comes to public safety. I will point out that keep in mind that sometimes there may be items on the list that doesn't necessarily mean those are the most broken or the most dissatisfied. they can be doing really well, but still be a really high priority. So as you go through them and you review the numbers, it's important to keep in mind that some of the message that you might be taking away from this is, hey, we're really happy with our fire department, we're really happy with our police department, we just want you to maintain that. We don't want you to let the foot off the gas because we know it's a threat to a lot of other communities, including ours. And we're looking at codes and ordinances, and there's some specific issues because a lot of times we get a generic overall, how satisfied are you with codes and ordinances. Here we tried to drill down that a little bit. All of these four really came in the same category, very high priority: cleaning up litter and debris on private property, mowing and cutting weeds, all of that. Again, you might look at some of these items and say, but we just had a huge cleanup day and we had all these positive things going on. How come we're not seeing that? Well, there is that recency bias. Sometimes you capture that, but sometimes it takes a while. It just depends on the perceptions. To change those may take more information, more engagement with the public. But through these numbers, they're saying that it's a very, very high priority for you to focus on all four of these categories. Now we look at parks. Again, everything pretty much came up as a medium priority, so nothing really stood out as we're really unhappy about this particular aspect. And I didn't know Dog Park was in the top one, but that's good since they used that example. But anyway, all of these are sort of a medium priority. Now we get into maintenance, and you can see a distinction between those very high priorities, and medium. I won't go through all of those, but again, we talked about it a little bit earlier. The maintenance of city streets and sidewalks really is, there's a clear message that those are important to the public. Some other findings, other questions that we asked. So we wanted to know investment areas. What's the most important areas that you think for the city to invest in the community? Additional investment towards city street maintenance, the modernization and production of drinking water, the providing neighborhood assistance. Those are the top three, and this is where people can rank their top three choices. You can see how really the modernization and production of drinking water came out as the most important in terms of those that made it their first choice. But overall, it was pretty even with the street maintenance. Do you feel that traffic enforcement is, in terms of how category, is it enough? Is it not enough? And you can see most people are pretty happy with they're saying about right. That 68% said it's about right, and 25% said not enough. So overall, you can see a clear majority of over 90% of your residents, 93% of your residents indicated that traffic enforcement either about right or could do more. Compared to schools in nearby communities, how do they rank North Kansas City Public Schools? You can kind of see there. Above average, far above average are in the blue and the dark blue, and then yellow is average. So you've got about 17% that say there's a concern or some level of they're below average or they didn't provide. I guess it's only 4% that said it's below average, and 13% just didn't answer that question. Importance of quality of school system to when it comes to how important is that last issue to deciding where you live. You can see some people said it was very somewhat important is in the light blue, very important is in the dark blue. So you can see it is a big issue with 76% or so of your constituents that responded to the survey. How welcoming is Gladstone as a community when it comes to residents of different races, religion, ethnicity, and orientation? You can see the dark blue is very welcoming, and the light blue is welcoming, and the yellow is neutral. So you can see the majority of your residents feel very positive that Gladstone is a welcoming community towards others. When you think about the future of Gladstone, would you describe yourself as optimistic, pessimistic, somewhere in the middle, or not provided? And 61%, about 2/3 of your residents, said they're optimistic about Gladstone. That's very good. And you can see again, you might want it to be higher, and that's possible, but your service provision, and you look at those and how you rank compared to other regions and all of that is very, very good. So this is a summary. It's mainly what was on the first one of the first slides, so I'm not going to go over all of that, except this is good news. I think it's very positive news and put in the right context with some understanding of kind of what's been happening. You can expect some leveling off or plateauing in a few services here and there, but overall, you're doing quite well when you look at not only how you're doing just Gladstone standalone, but how you compare to other communities in the region. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Anyone have questions? Councilmember Carnos?
I had a comment. This does give us good jumping off point for a lot of different conversations and a lot of information here that backs up things that we either know or suspect. But the part of the study that I enjoyed the most was the 11, 12 pages of comments at the end that people just included with their surveys instead of just marking and scoring, just the general comments. And that was interesting. I don't know that I was surprised by anything, but you see what we get to deal with. You know, there's everything from we need more code enforcement to no, there's way too much code enforcement. You know, Gladstone's a great place to live. No, Gladstone, I'm leaving here. You know, and we get and you see that in those comments. There are a lot of consistent themes on issues that I know we have on our agenda to address, but just the unfiltered comments of people on what they think about the city and the biggest issues facing us, I thought was really valuable for us. Thank you.
Well, Robert, we appreciate all the hard work that you all have done in gathering all this information. What I come away from this is very happy with the statistics and what we have found out, and that us as a city council, we are in tune with what's going on through our goal setting that we just had back in October. We've addressed in our goals several of these items that seem to rise to the top as needing assistance throughout the city. So I'm glad to see that, and that we know what's going on here in our town. So thank you for all the information. There's no other any other questions?
Well, thank you,
Thank you.
and I would commend you all just for taking the time to ask about what your citizens really think. A lot of communities don't do that. They're not engaged, and the public feels that. And I think by the response here, we had a very positive response that your citizens, every year we've done it, will continue to meet that goal, and they'll provide, you know, evidence of their thoughts about the future of the city. And I just think that's so important for all communities to be open and willing to listen to those views, sometimes unfiltered, like Councilmember was just mentioning in terms of the comments. But that's the community. Community is that mix of people, diversity of opinions, and so it's my pleasure to work with you, and your staff are great, by the way, to work with. So really appreciate their time and your time tonight.
We appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a wonderful evening.
You too. We'll reconvene in about 7 minutes. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the regular city council meeting for Monday night, January 13th, 2025. It's hard to believe it's 2025. Madam Clerk, please note all council members are present and we have a quorum. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Moving on the agenda, item number 4 is the approval of the agenda. If there are no changes or objections to tonight's agenda, it will stand as presented. Are there any changes or objections? Hearing none, it will stand as presented. Item number 5, approval of the December 9th, 2024 closed city council meeting minutes.
Mayor Spalla.
Councilmember Moore.
I move for the approval of the December 9, 2024 closed city council meeting minutes.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the December 9th, 2024 closed city council meeting minutes. All in favor state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes will stand approved as published. Item number 6, approval of the December 9th, 2024 regular city council meeting minutes.
Mayor Spalla.
Councilmember Moore.
I move for the approval of the December 9, 2024 regular city council meeting minutes.
Second.
We've got a motion and a second to approve the December 9th, 2024 regular city council meeting minutes. All in favor state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the December 9th, 2024 regular city council meeting minutes will stand as approved. Item number 7, communications from audience. Members of the public are invited to speak about any topic not listed on the agenda. While speaking, please state your name and address for the record and limit comments to 5 minutes. Seeing none, we'll move on to item number 8, communications from our city council. That would be fun to talk about tonight. Councilman Davis.
Nothing tonight, Mayor, thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Garnos.
Nothing, Mayor, thank you.
Councilmember Moore.
I have nothing, thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith.
I have nothing, thank you.
Wow. Well, I do have something, and it's very, very exciting. I was provided this information today, and it is, I'm just going to read a statement that was prepared for me. The Gladstone Police Headquarters and City Hall Expansion Project has been named an Officer Magazine Station Design Silver Award winner. According to the nationwide publication, the project was the most cost-effective with a significantly lower cost per square foot to build among all those recognized. This is the 5th annual Officer Station Design Awards held by Officer Magazine, which highlights law enforcement and public safety facilities from across the country. 13 entities were featured in the publication, which were submitted by 10 architectural firms specializing in public safety facilities. So Hofer Waker, they provided this information to the magazine. They're the ones that nominated us. The goal of this recognition is to help police chiefs, sheriffs, public safety directors, and municipal leaders view the trends and innovations in new facilities. The publication called Gladstone's Police and City Hall Project a good example of updating and expanding on a pre-existing structure. I'd like to congratulate City Manager Baird and our police chief for, this has been a fantastic project between the new police station and City Hall. And as recognized, we are a Silver Award winner. This will be provided in social media outlets starting tomorrow. And we're just really excited to be named the Silver Award winner this year. So thank you very much. Fantastic. All right, moving on. Communications from City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor.
Mhm.
City Hall will be closed on Monday, January 20th in observance of Martin Luther King Day. The office will reopen on Tuesday, January 21st at 8 a.m. The dog license renewals have been sent out, and residents have until February 1st to get their dogs licensed. To renew, owners will need a current rabies certificate and the renewal paperwork. You can visit the Gladstone Animal Control webpage for more information. And finally, with the recent winter weather, I want to recognize Public Works, the whole department, and thank our residents for their patience while we work to clear roads after each snow event. I know the crews have worked really hard, and I'd like to acknowledge their efforts.
Next item is our consent agenda. Madam Clerk, will you please read and explain the consent agenda?
A consent agenda allows the City Council to consider and approve routine items of business without discussion. Any member of the City Council, the city staff, or the public may request removal of any item from the consent agenda and request that it be considered under the regular agenda if discussion or debate of the item is desired. Items not removed from the consent agenda will stand approved upon motion by any council member. Second unanimous vote to approve the consent agenda as published or modified. Consent agenda, Resolution R-25-01, a resolution authorizing acceptance of a proposal from JAB Technologies in the amount of $18,457 for the purchase of 3 APC units and related supporting equipment. Acknowledging receipt of the fiscal year 25-26 budget of Downtown Linden Community Improvement District and Linden Block 25 Community Improvement District.
Does anyone from the audience, city council, or staff wish to remove any item from the consent agenda? Karen, yes, sir?
Move we approve the consent agenda as submitted.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All in favor state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The consent agenda stands approved. Moving on to our regular agenda. Item number 11, first reading of bill number 25-01. An ordinance calling a general election for the election of one position to the Gladstone City Council on Tuesday, April 8th, 2025. Describing the form of the ballot and directing the city clerk to submit certification of such election to the Clay County Board of Election Commissioners pursuant to the revised statute of Missouri 115.125. Call for a motion. Mayor Pro Tem Smith.
Move we place bill number 25-01 on its first reading.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to place bill number 25-01 on its first reading. Is there any discussion? All in favor of placing bill number 25-01 on its first reading, state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Madam Clerk, please read the bill.
First reading bill number 25-01. An ordinance calling a general election for the election of one position to the Gladstone City Council on Tuesday, April 8th, 2025, describing the form of the ballot and directing the city clerk to submit certification of such election to the Clay County Board of Election Commissioners pursuant to revised statute of Missouri 115.125.
As follows.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith.
Move we approve the first reading bill 25-01, waive the rule and place the bill on its second and final reading.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to accept the first reading of bill number 25-01, waive the rule, and place the bill on its second and final reading. Is there any discussion? All in favor of placing bill number 25-01 on its second and final reading, state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Madam Clerk, please read the bill.
Second reading bill number 25-01, an ordinance calling a general election for the election of one position to the Gladstone City Council on Tuesday, April 8th, 2025, describing the form of ballot and directing the city clerk to submit certification of such election to the Clay County Board of Election Commissioners pursuant to revised statute Missouri 115.125.
Ms. Paul.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith.
We accept the second and final reading Bill 25-01 and act as ordinance 4.687.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to accept the second and final reading of Bill number 25-01 and enact the bill as ordinance 4.687. Is there any discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman Davis?
Aye.
Councilman Garnos?
Aye.
Councilmember Moore?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith?
Aye.
Mayor Spallo?
Aye.
That sounds so anxious.
Bill number 25-01 stands enacted as ordinance number 4.687. Moving on to item number 12, first reading, bill number 25-02. An ordinance authorizing the city manager to execute an intergovernmental agreement between the city of Gladstone and the Mid-America Regional Council, MARC, Solid Waste Management District for the 2025 Regional Household Hazardous Waste Collection Program in the amount of $30,881.77.
Mayor Spall.
Councilman Davis.
I move to approve bill number 25-02 on its first reading.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to place bill number 25-02 on its first reading. Is there any discussion? All in favor of placing bill number 25-02 on its first reading, state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Madam Clerk, please read the bill.
First reading, bill number 25-02, an ordinance authorizing the city manager to execute an intergovernmental agreement between the city of Gladstone and the Mid-America Regional Council, MARC, Solid Waste Management District for the 2025 Regional Household Hazardous Waste Collection Program in the amount of $30,881.77.
Mayor Spall.
Councilman Davis.
I move to approve bill number 25-02 on its second reading, waive the rule and place it on its final reading.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to accept the first reading of bill number 25-02, waive the rule, and place the bill on its second and final reading. Is there any discussion? All in favor of placing bill number 25-02 on its second and final reading, state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Madam Clerk, please read the bill.
Second reading, bill number 25-02, an ordinance authorizing the city manager to execute an intergovernmental agreement between the city of Gladstone and the Mid-America Regional Council, MARC, Solid Waste Management District for the 2025 Regional Household Hazardous Waste Collection Program in the amount of $30,881.77.
Mayor Spall.
Councilman Davis.
I move to approve bill number 25-02 and enact it as an ordinance number 4.688.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to accept the second and final reading of bill number 25-02 and enact the bill as ordinance 4.688. Is there any discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman Davis?
Aye.
Councilman Garnos?
Aye.
Councilmember Moore?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith?
Aye.
Mayor Spallo?
Aye. Bill number 25-02 stands enacted as ordinance number 4.688. Moving on, item number 13. It's the first reading of bill number 25-03, an ordinance authorizing the city manager to enter into a cooperative agreement with the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, to provide law enforcement resources to the Kansas City Intra-Agency Intelligence Task Force.
Mayor Spallo.
Councilman Garnos.
Move to place bill number 25-03 on its first reading.
Second. I defer to you, sir.
It has been moved and seconded to place bill number 25-03 on its first reading. Is there any discussion? All in favor of placing bill number 25-03 on its first reading, state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Madam Clerk, please read the bill.
First reading, bill number 25-03, An ordinance authorizing the city manager to enter into a cooperative agreement with the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, to provide law enforcement resources to the Kansas City Interagency Intelligence Task Force.
Mayor Spallo.
Councilman Garnos.
Move to accept the first reading of bill number 25-03, waive the rule, and place the bill on its second and final reading.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to accept the first reading of bill number 25-03, waive the rule, and place the bill on its second and final reading. Is there any discussion? All in favor of placing bill number 25-03 on its second and final reading, state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Madam Clerk, please read the bill.
Second reading, bill number 25-03. An ordinance authorizing the city manager to enter into a cooperative agreement with the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, to provide law enforcement resources to the Kansas City Interagency Intelligence Task Force.
Mayor Spallo.
Councilman Garnos.
Move to accept the second and final reading of bill number 25-03 and enact the bill as ordinance number 4.689.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to accept the second and final reading of bill number 25-03 and enact the bill as ordinance number 4.689. Is there any discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman Davis?
Aye.
Councilman Garnos?
Aye.
Councilmember Moore?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith?
Aye.
Mayor Spallo?
Aye. Bill number 25-03 stands enacted as ordinance number 4.689. Moving on to item number 14, would be resolution R-25-02. A resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a contract with Viking Painting LLC in the total amount not to exceed $1,638,400 for the 0.3 million gallon Linden Water Tower and 1.0 million gallon Antioch Water Tower painting and repairs, project WP 2492C. I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor Spallo.
Councilmember Moore.
I move for the adoption of resolution R-25-02.
Second.
A motion and second has been made to approve resolution -25-02. All in favor state aye.
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 Any opposed? Resolution number 25-02 stands approved. Item number 15, resolution R-25-03. A resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a contract with Landtel Communications Services Incorporated in the total amount not to exceed $468,450 for the fiscal year 25 curb, gutter, and sidewalk program, Phase 1, Project TP 2505.
Mayor Spallo.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith.
Accept resolution R-25-03.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second to approve resolution 25-03. All in favors?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Resolution R-25-03 stands approved. Item number 16. Resolution R-25-04. A resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a contract with Legacy Post and Beam, Inc. in the total amount not to exceed $305,501.21 for the purchase of a 1.5-story gable barn kit, project CP2454. I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor Spallo. I move to adopt and approve resolution R-24-04.
Second.
We've got a motion and a second to approve R-25-04. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution number R-25-04 stands approved. Item number 17, is there any other business? Hearing none, we will be adjourned.